We are back weaponizing memes as always. A late September episode of Off the Record on the Rocks. We've been talking a lot about memes and the memification of everything. I think from Jerome Powell finally making the Fed decision, the memes were off the charts with our boy Jerome Powell and Polymarket, to a golden statue of Trump unveiled holding a Bitcoin, and then another golden statue of him with Epstein being placed on the lawn, like almost memes of memes on memes, meta memes, if you will. We've got all the new hardware announcements from Meta, from Apple, new Bitcoin orange iPhones. It's hot in the market right now.
Got the Bitcoin orange right here in my hand. It's a gorgeous device. It's slowly taking control of my life. It by itself is its own meme generator. If you think about how every person, everyone that you come in contact with, we used to say avatar, right? That used to be the term that was used to describe, well, there's going to be this virtual version of me. I want to say even in Ready Player One, there's about like your avatar that's in the game, in the Oasis. Now, just by looking at your phone or even casually glancing at your phone, it feels sometimes like your phone is looking back. And I say that in a funny way. Like, you used to be, for example, you had the phone mounted on a device and you set it up to film. And as you walk around the room, the little mechanical device turns the phone and follows you and is able to track you. So you can kind of shoot a one-man show. Well, now the cameras in the phone on either side can do that without the phone itself moving to a point.
It can track.
So the desktop view where you can kind of mount using a clever little device like this and kind of create a trapezoidal effect, a keystone effect to make your desk, which is being shot at a hard angle, look rectangular. Well, you, the human, are being tracked by your face and your features.
Grab a drink. It's time for another episode of Off the Record on the Rocks. Join Michael Toner and Ankarina Lara as we discuss the latest in all things Web3, AI, metaverse, and crypto. Tune out the noise and turn up the signal as we pour ourselves into the future. Better make mine a double.
Human are being tracked by your face and your features. So I literally say, when you glance at your phone, and I was sitting on a call and I kind of leaned back just to get myself out of the picture a little bit, leaned back away from the mic, and everyone could still see me leaning back to have my little sidebar with someone else because my phone was watching me the whole time. And everyone's like, hey, we see that you're leaning back and talking to everybody. And I was like, oh, damn. So when I say that, I just mean that now with the new Apple OS and what will come following quickly from Google, this is about iOS 26, is that your likeness is being encouraged to be dropped into memojis, genmojis, you, Michael, the baby, me, the wizard. And suddenly we're having a chat with each other and it feels like we're these alternate personas. So we talk about the memes as coming from the tech, but all the way up to political. Like I wanted to not miss what you said. A giant golden statue appearing on a lawn. I mean, remember what it used to be? Like the big fat cat with the ring and the cigar, or the big fat rat that they drive and inflate and stick next to the construction sites to oppose Trump building a new tower. Well, now it's just gone full 180. It's just a golden Trump holding a giant Bitcoin, more or less on the day that iPhone gets dropped with their new Bitcoin orange, to steal some thunder, I think, right? What do memes do? Memes co-opt conversations and make them yours.
Create derivative conversations. I think you started in on the hardware, Apple making those announcements. When I see or hear you describe the camera, we've seen how this different camera view has shown up. You mentioned sort of the top-down display. I think about Face ID and the way it is sort of scanning the environment, including your face around you, in order to optically recognize. We've talked on the show here about optical, not facial recognition, but optical recognition, or the optical keys and scanning your eyes. All of those features to me, and then you took it all the way through to like creating avatars and memojis, and how you can track your face as a shark or a bear or a rat or a rooster. Now that coming through even to our own show, with Riverside pumping out these mean characters of the famous talking babies, doing our own show here, and the ability to remix and create derivatives. And we're talking about hardware and the capability that it allows for in this scanning of a physical space. I think about the behavior change that the hardware and the technology, the hardware and the software together driving this behavioral change. What we just described there with Meta, with Apple's ecosystem leads me to Meta with the drop of these new AI glasses. I am wearing the first gen Meta Ray-Bans, which I've had for a little over a year now. These do not have the augmented reality heads-up display that Zuckerberg and team just unveiled, that now has this HUD, this HUD, this heads-up display, able to show simple things, think text messages, turn-by-turn navigational lists, maybe even links and things like that. Speaking of memes, it's like
my phone just threw something through a window. I got to just turn it off. It's so crazy. You really have to wrestle with it. But like what you're saying, but like you're saying, you're gonna looking at people and seeing a little arrow over their head pointing down, or a little virtual "hello, my name is," because as you go out in this crazy world, some of the hardest things to do are remembering all of your colleagues and friends of friends and friends' names. Let's just say at a very simple level, your ability to, with the new eye tracking, like I was just describing, but wearing the eye tracking on your face and not in your pocket means that your glasses, says Meta, knows who and what you're looking at, because it can just track that nice little line through your optic nerve through the lens and say, he's looking at Wendy. And then the old days, you used to go outside the meeting room, pull up LinkedIn and start going through and just reminding yourself, okay, this guy, he went to school here and this and all those things. And you go into the meeting, or you got your meeting notes. Now you walk in, I look to my left, like RoboCop. It's just first person. That's Wendy. What's her job? She's the VP. Turn to the right. Who's that? That's Rob. Who's he? He's the assistant. Okay, well, I'm going to talk to Wendy. And then you turn to the third guy and you're like, that's a perpetrator. And I have to gun him down because that's what's going to come, is like, that's actually the enemy. And now you can see how this technology moves away from the boardroom and out to the battlefield. And there's a real quick jump. I know that's a hard jump, but so much of the rhetoric that I know it's not necessarily technically AI related or Web3 related or metaverse related or crypto related, but it all kind of is, because the underlying technology of war is something that is now, we're awash in it in a way that we don't think about it, from drones to, these sentinel units that watch battlefields. We're going to a place where we don't talk anymore hardly at all about the incursions, because it's ever present. It's the ever present backdrop. And yet now this tech we're looking at here, we're going to put on our face. You better believe that our soldiers are going to be wearing this stuff soon. Yeah. It's a little bit crazy how quickly we've gotten to this place where wearables is just an understood thing by most people.
When we say that the World War III will be fought in the metaverse, I think that what you described of these tools, the technology, we've already see that with phones and phone tracking. We maybe can get into this case in New York where they've uncovered all these phones. Oh, all of a sudden I'm getting can't track my video. Just cut my video off. Am I back?
You're back.
Check one. Yeah, I lost my train of thought there, but I think World War III being fought in the metaverse, tracking of phones. I don't know if you saw the story about the phones in New York City and Manhattan. There was like a network of distributed phones and phone equipment found in empty apartments that was meant to like send blocking signals or like jam the network with bad data. Think about that way. And where all of this leads me to, and maybe a good thread all the way back around to the blockchain and this intersection of hardware and Apple announcements and metaverse and avatars and what's real and what's fake and how we're going to keep track of it. And, if it is in a battlefield scenario and there are life and death decisions being made, whatever that scenario may be, you want the AI to be accurate, and it needs to make an accurate decision, and it must be rooted in the truth. And who is the arbiter of that truth? I think the market right now, the people, maybe the cameras, But even that can now be faked with generative AI. You can't believe anything you see. Those actually aren't babies doing our podcast. It's us trying to figure this stuff out.
Yeah, and I think that's really where it gets back right back to the truth layer, and it runs all the way through from the political examples we've given to what I think is maybe a good segue to some of the examples we've seen lately when it pertains to, say, the late night broadcasts. You have the Jimmy Kimmel show get influenced and fully shut down by a federal commission, the FCC, who talks to all of its affiliates, because this is still broadcast, right? If Jimmy Kimmel was on Netflix or if he was on HBO Max, this wouldn't even be a question, right? This is about
the airwaves.
Who owns the airwaves. And so to have that happen, that's got me thinking of, well, this is just the beginning of what could be a pattern, because if Meta starts to do something with its glasses that the federal government doesn't like, there are federal regulation and commissions that are going to come in and do similar things to Meta and Zuckerberg, right? Like Jimmy Kimmel isn't sitting at the rotunda during the inauguration. Mark Zuckerberg is. So he already is in a little bit better graces, right? All those guys are. But all it takes is one misstep. If Google decides we're going to do something and the DOJ doesn't like it, we've already seen the DOJ came in there and tried to make them sell Chrome. That's pretty aggressive. Like making Google sell Chrome is kind of like trying to make Jimmy Kimmel stop telling jokes. Like it's such a dramatic and hard response to something that I think is poorly understood and is mostly overly politicized. And who's your pal? Do you have more friends who are in tech who aren't Google? Yes. Well, guess what? We're going to go after Google. So the question really is, how on the right side of the line do all the tech companies have to play? And so far, we know that the one that tends to not play is Apple, with their privacy and their guidelines and all the things that they say, their rhetoric, whereas all the other companies with your Microsofts and your Googles and others tend to be really well aligned. Now, Tim Cook sits in the rotunda as well. He's there. But how in the gray area do you think Apple will go? Because we are trusting the trust layer that our eyeballs and our data and all the tracking and all the stuff that you look at every day through the glasses that you're wearing, we trust that that's kind of in our own little private, let's get back to the private enclave, your own AI assistant in a private enclave. Is it going to stay there?
Yeah.
Or will it be broadcast when the government subpoenas Apple and says, hey, we need Michael Toner's information?
Today,
they're going to just say today,
morning,
like right now.
Today, this morning, Tim Cook, the CEO of Apple, admitted on the morning shows to owning Bitcoin and having been looking at it for a while. And I joked there at the top of the show, calling it Bitcoin Orange. The fact that the phone has the Bitcoin white paper, that we broke that story here a year or so ago. It's been on the phone. We've known about it for a while. And now here's our orange phone in its secure enclave. I saw Ev talking about is it Bitwise or BitChat, the same platform I think you and I are still trying to figure out, that uses this Bluetooth decentralized method of having wallet integration. You can now send Bitcoin and Satoshis through iMessage directly to somebody. The banks have already been disintermediated, and yes, Apple will go far. They will go the farthest down that path of not playing with anybody, but owning the ecosystem, being the rails that allow those transactions to happen. And to just put a fine tip on it, the reason I know they will continue going down there is because the other players are spending billions and
I think your mic might have cut out. I can't hear you. We're having technical issues here today on the show, folks. You're back. You're back.
The point there of the other tech companies trying to play catch up with NVIDIA putting this $5 billion stake in Intel, offering this lifeline to the struggling chip maker. My take on that is Apple's been making its own chips. They've been talking about the M1, the M2, their own silicone. They got their own chips. They got their own phones. They got their own optical ID. They got Bitcoin on the phone. Tim Cook's already in the rotunda. these other guys are spending billions to try to catch up. They will go deep.
Yeah,
down
that's playing catch up. They're going to go down that road, and it's just probably worth, because we have a lot of new listeners now, but it's worth mentioning that everything you just said is absolutely true, which is that the Bitcoin white paper was put onto every Apple iPhone, that it exists on the phone. And now there is legitimately a Bitcoin Orange phone. And it's come now to this point. We're getting close to 15 years of Bitcoin's birthday. I think we're at 13 or 12 coming up in January. And you're starting to see what we've said from the jump, which is if you can control the hardware, you can control the metaverse. And Apple is very strategically, slowly controlling, taking up more share and trying to build out its enclave, its own little proprietary world. And that proprietary world exists not only for privacy, but this notion of banking. You know, you hear Bitcoin enthusiasts often talk about how this is a democratized money system, right? This is a beyond borders money system. The famous example that if Bill Gates wants to buy a tractor to plow some of his land in Washington state, well, a sub-Saharan farmer in Africa should be able to buy the tractor or sell the tractor to him, because the two of them can connect over the Lightning Network and do that transaction. And there is no intermediary, right? There is no bank to call. It's Sunday at 2 p.m. and the banks are closed. So what am I going to do? Well, I have a bank in my pocket. And let's also not forget that Apple, when they did their Apple savings deal, went down the road pretty far with Goldman Sachs, and then pulled a full end around it and went straight to Morgan Stanley, who, if you look at Jamie Dimon's move lately, well, out of one side of his mouth, he goes on and on about how Bitcoin is just a bunch of junk. It's for funding terrorists. Don't worry about it. Suppressing the price with all his rhetoric. But at the same time, JP Morgan is releasing all kinds of Bitcoin ETFs and exposing all of their customers to this type of crypto resource. It's a lot of disingenuous talk and behavior to further one thing, which is saturate the market to the point where, like you said, we used to like bump phones to pay for pizza at the kids' party on Venmo. But no, Apple doesn't know Venmo.
Why?
Who's Venmo? They weren't invited to the pizza party. There's a thing called Bitcoin that no one controls, and there are these things called iPhones that we control, and now we're going to keep everyone out. And so the last thing I'll say about the billions, I want to toss this back to you because I thought it was so interesting, is down that rotunda, right? Tim Cook knows what he's up to. He's got his chair over there. He smiles in his shrewd way all the time. Very mild-mannered, quiet guy. Most of these other guys are, by comparison, kind of bombastic. If you were to compare them along the little row here, you got your Andreessen, you got your Horowitz, you got your different guys. You got your Oracle leads, right? Because then old Larry Ellison, literally old Larry Ellison, who I want to say just turned 80 years old. I mean, he is getting up there, and he's like, I am going to single-handedly save social media in the United States, and work the negotiated deal to do the acquisition of TikTok and Americanize the company. So I don't know if it's if you can't beat them, join them. But to me, it feels like Oracle, who kind of sort of were the original hardware guys in the Valley, right? Making these server mainframes and arrays, have just said, you know what? I think software is actually the path to capturing more of that battlefield they lost to Apple. They've ceded, because the hardware, there's no time anytime soon that Oracle is making a consumer grade, phone or any kind of wearable, but they know they're going to capture the hearts and minds of Gen Z and Gen Alpha by owning the software that they spend their time, staring at. Talk to me about that. That Oracle play kind of caught me off guard.
Well, I mean, the algorithm changing hands, just the way it's sort of filtered through the narrative filter there. I mean, that was the piece I think that broke through, was like that somehow this algorithm was changing hands from the original ownership to now be American owned. We talked about this here last week about the weaponization of memes. I don't know if Oracle's got a big defense contract coming their way, but there's other implications of
probably
the biggest media and that's the part where when you talk about these different worlds and Apple creating its own world, this ecosystem mentality, these walled gardens that we've known for a long time, Facebook famously being the
the original
walled garden.
Yeah.
And now the metaverse that they're creating and the ecosystem that they're creating around themselves, literally from a branding perspective. When you see something like Oracle enter that same kind of now hardware, software owning the ecosystem, it goes back to who are the owners, who own the airwaves. And in this case, those airwaves are going to be owned by Larry Ellison, A16. Horowitz had their hands all over that deal as well. I think there will be competition that now will enter the market. This is the other catalyst of all of this consolidation. We're going to start to shift the whole narrative of this show in the next 18 months, because for the last 18 months, I've been screaming this flurry of market activity, IPOs, acquisitions, reverse mergers, who owns who's aligned with who. All of that is shaking out right now with the flurry of IPOs, new kind of the equivalent of what feel like initial coin offerings, but they're AI companies. You're also seeing this flurry of market activity around strategic reserve companies actually being acquired by publicly traded companies just for the sake of buying the underlying asset, a la Bitcoin, right? That's a new market dynamic that's forming. New derivatives are being formed. Some of them on chain, some of them AI powered, some of them in the metaverse, some of them more decentralized in nature. But that flurry of activity will be the antidote to this centralized control of these other players.
Yeah.
Between Apple, Meta, and now whatever this new American-owned TikTok brings to bear. There will be new waves, new innovation. The counterweight will emerge on the other side of this, and the bubble will burst. It will pop, and be ready. And I think it's still up. I think we're still in great positions heading in through September and October, but be ready.
But then we're going to see who's got soap on their face when the bubble blasts right in their face. But when you say it like that, I actually start to conceptualize it, and maybe a way for us to frame it for understanding, because, there's if the underlying tech of the internet is going to change, and it's going to be called the blockchain. We know there is a new system called blockchain. It's going to run everything. We know that it's faster, it's more transparent, easier to work with, and it's decentralized, and people enjoy that as a alternative to the fact that there's about 5 companies that control the internet as we know it today on the American version of the planet. Like, if you're getting this data sent to you to your phone right now, if you're watching on a computer screen, there's likely bits of this show coming through Microsoft, coming through Netflix, coming through Apple, coming through Facebook, coming through these different, or Amazon, major owners of broadband, right? So the blockchain starts to create a way to break up, if you will, that monopoly of those core old school players there. What's the new tech, though? Well, AI is the new tech. And there's all these proliferation of AI companies that have some investments from some, and everyone's kind of intertwixed in their own little menage of ownership of AI, going out and getting cash to fund more data centers. Where are they going to exist? Well, put some in Texas. What about over here? Sure, put it in Canada. On. And then you have the cryptocurrencies, which I liked your analogy, which is, I guess, the fuel that really runs the AI, right? Because they're not literally taking a whole duffel bag of money and sort of feeding it into some machine that converts it. They're actually moving cryptocurrencies and digital versions of credits. When you sign up for ChatGPT, you don't use $20 worth. You have credits so you can prompt and so forth. But there's something in the middle that those guys are swirling around that really Meta and Apple are coming at from two sides hard, except that Apple comes at it from hardware first, let's just say, software second. You have Meta coming at it from software first, hardware second, right? They're each trying to shore up their own ownership of eyeballs based on where they had that deficiency. And then you have these multi-billionaires who say, well, we don't really start with hardware first for consumers and software second, or vice versa. We just have so much money. I'm the second, third, first, whatever richest person in the world. I know all these guys in Abu Dhabi. My buddy was just there and got a commitment for these many billions. And we're going to come right at the center of that intersection that I just described, full steam with a bulldozer that's just going to blast through the walls, because we're going to be able to create Bitcoin treasury companies, and we're going to be able to create those crazy underlying things. So we're going to have so much money that if really push comes to shove, is there a scenario where, I don't know, Oracle acquires Facebook from Meta? What if Oracle what if these guys come in and just start consolidating at a place where we haven't even seen the level of investment?
Wow.
What if OpenAI just says, we're going to buy Google?
Yeah.
Because if they get to a valuation of having such a treasury, they could say, we have $1.2 trillion in crypto. We're just going to acquire Google.
Wasn't that the other NVIDIA announcement was $100 billion in
100 billion
AI?
In OpenAI.
Right.
Yeah, but well, those two are real strange. Those are some bedfellows. You got to have the chips to have the AI, right? That's the match that Apple found and Facebook found. OpenAI now found that with NVIDIA.
We have seen only unprecedented funding numbers and valuation numbers associated with Sam Altman. Only B's multiple billions continued 3 months later, 6 months later, add-on investments, now 100 billion. To your point, those numbers get to the trillions. We've heard the T's starting to get thrown out with regard to $1 trillion companies and valuations, and Elon Musk himself, maybe the first trillionaire, and all these.
A $1 trillion compensation package over 10 years. Like, is Shohei Ohtani going to renegotiate? I mean, what's happening?
I think, that spread between the top and the bottom of valuations, to your point, you might start to see consolidation when the bubble bursts. It might burst so far up in the sky that we're talking, hundreds of billions of dollars in change valuation that may or may not affect the US dollar or the markets to an effect if the money has already been moved into.
And what if the money is derivatives? The money is the money has become the meme.
Oh,
like trillion, the T, that is I actually didn't think in our lifetime that hundreds of millionaires would just be looked at as just street urchins by the Silicon Valley Illuminati and the political Illuminati. That hundreds of millionaires, like, wait, what? No, if it doesn't even start with billions, then don't even come in the door. And then on top of that, we can talk trillions because I have this new asset that some people might say I pulled out of thin air. And I call it something that even sounds like thin air. I'm not saying it's coming from the ethers, but I am saying that it's called ether. So don't hang yourself up on the fact that it sounds like I'm pulling money out of the ethers, because I'm pulling the money out of the Ethereum treasury company that I just acquired. And it says right here on this website that I have on my new Bitcoin Orange iPhone that I have $1.2 trillion. So I'm going to walk down to Sunnyvale. I'm going to start there because I know I can get Yahoo for cheap. And I'm just going to go buy Yahoo because I probably can get that for like, what, 120 billion? Let's just say their fantasy sports book is pretty valuable, but I'm pretty sure I can get up most of it for about 120 billion. And I still have another 900 billion because I had 1.2 trillion. It says right here on my phone. And I'm going to keep going around and bumping my phone. I'll stop and get pizza for the kid's birthday, and then I'm going to go buy Google. And then as soon as someone says, wait a second, this Ethereum actually doesn't have the value that we thought it did. It's orders of magnitude lower. You don't have 1.2 trillion. You actually have $120. Oh, well, gosh, I just bankrupted 20% of the current internet because I bought Google and I bought Yahoo. And I just shut them down. Like, you can see how very quickly, like you're saying, the bubble might burst so high in the sky that it'll just read like the Sunday paper, the funnies. But I think is going to have this wild trickle down effect to all of us, which is that we will suddenly have things that we've relied on either change dramatically or disappear. I mean, look, people thought Twitter would never go away. Twitter became X and like everyone, the world moved on. Right. Anything can change really quick. Chrome almost disappeared from Google. Anything can happen. And the money, there is no more, it costs too much because I can always go over there and fabricate money. Yeah. That's what I'm worried about. The money is the meme is the money. They're interchangeable.
Have you seen any of the stories? I don't know if punks and punksters did this first, but they created this smart contract concept where you can go and buy, I believe it's the Punkster token. So you can invest in this token. And as it acquires, let's say when it gets to $100,000, the smart contract, so anyone can go and buy this token. You can buy it for $5, $10. You could put 10,000, 20,000, whenever it gets to the pot gets full, the smart contract goes and acquires a cyberpunk NFT. And once it acquires that NFT, it holds it now in this wallet that is jointly owned by the token holders. And then it will then relist it, I believe, at a 20% profit margin. And then sell it. The profit then gets redistributed back to the token holders. It is literally
it's a smart contract agent, or an agent with a smart contract, effectively.
Well, it's a treasury company. It's a punk treasury company. I'm now buying into this token, and this DAO, this sort of non-entity's contract. Its entire job is to go buy and sell CryptoPunks at a margin and distribute the profits back, and then go buy more of them. And so the more people who buy the token, it gets to 100,000, it gets to 200,000. At last look, I think they had bought 8 or 10 punks. And now you're seeing all of these other NFT projects start to do the exact same infinite money printing machine with these treasury companies to just simply create a new derivative of the NFT. And its entire objective to go and market that sale of that token is to then go acquire that NFT, buy it at one price, sell it for a little bit higher. And when it sells, those profit gets redistributed. It literally creates its own derivative loop. And I think in a world of deregulation and acceptance, SEC coming out talking about Bitcoin and Ethereum and Solana entering your 401ks with open doors. Paul Atkins and the SEC out there saying with open doors, that to me are the new markets. You can create derivatives of this thing, much like Michael Saylor himself set up with MicroStrategy, now Strategy, as the first Bitcoin treasury company, and now its only job to go out there and acquire more Bitcoin.
And that, in fact, is I think that's the exact clear, simple way to describe the money is the meme is the money. And that is, in a very simple way for our listeners, right? I was talking about a bunch of people fabricating Ethereum to the tune of $1 trillion to acquire a company. That's pretty heady. That's way up there. That's sort of conceptual for all of us, right? It's sort of a thought experiment. But what you're describing is an AI agent. The agent is called a broker. Let's just call it a broker for the world of like someone who buys and sells collectibles, right? Sotheby's, Butterfield, like these are auction houses, but let's just say it's like an auction agent, a broker agent. The funny part about that is that is exactly what I'm saying about fabricating value out of thin air. Because if everyone from the SEC to every bank is just out there with their fist pumping in the air talking about tokenization of real world assets, which is more or less synonymous with a fractional ownership of something. I can own a slice of a stock, says Schwab. I can own a piece of a stock, says whoever. If you tokenize it and you have enough people to acquire this punk, this NFT, literally, like talk about NFT having their summer all over again, but they acquire the punk, some number of people, let's keep the numbers simple, 100 of them going together. They all pool the money to acquire the punk, and then the agent is going to go sell it for 20%. But then what if I just fabricate 100 agents that are also kind of doing the same thing? So it's almost like you're kiting a check in a circle where your same group of people just keep taking the profit and reinvesting that into the crypto ecosystem, while then supposedly having buyers acquiring the punk at 20% when the buyers are still just all you and your pals. And so everyone keeps swirling the market up and just taking that 20% off as if you were an employee of a company getting stock option grants and getting that haircut quarter over quarter for having the lowest value over that period. You're literally fabricating value, and 20% might not actually be that difficult to do.
As long as the sun comes up tomorrow and the music keeps playing and the musical chairs game goes on, then nobody's left holding the bag because the music doesn't stop. And that, I think, is where we are right now. And it's crazy to unpack that. I think there's a ton of implications for what that means. And it has started to come through here as we enter the last days of September. the US federal government shutdown, and the big debt number will start to enter the chat right as we are uncovering an infinite glitch in the money machine meme. We found it, everybody. We've got the ticket to pay off the US federal debt. Trillions of dollars. Voila, showing up and gone. I mean, think about how we just get there.
Yeah, and to harken back to an article which I feel like no one paid any attention to. We saw it, but of all people, a Russian finance minister casually raising his hand at a conference and saying, I don't think it would be a good idea for the United States to use crypto to erase their national debt, which is so prescient on so many levels because, well, gosh, in an instant, we will completely have devalued the entire global economy for the last multiple decades. The foreign countries and businesses have been buying treasury bonds. We've been selling debt. It's like, hey, buddy,
new game.
Those are worth nothing. We don't have any debt. Don't you remember? I told you that 1.2 trillion. I already bought you pizza and Yahoo. They just got rid of their debt. The federal government just got rid of the debt. How many treasury bonds are you sitting on? Is the heat and the power turned off where you're living? You might want to start burning them in the fireplace. You know, it's coming. It's like we've seen this before when these things happen and people sit there with all that old money. You have bags of cash because you're selling weapons. Well, that's no good. It's hard to move around and you end up lighting it on fire to stay warm in the winter. Oh, I'll use Bitcoin and Ethereum to buy my guns and armaments. Oh, that's much more convenient. Well, ding, national debt. That sounds like last year's problem. We got a pal named Larry, and he's going to get TikTok going, and he's going to loan me some money to pay down the national debt.
And what happens when that narrative comes true? We re-enter the chat in October. We will see a little bit of a shutdown. We'll see who flinches first. But the setup, the narrative, the ability to pay off the debt, the ecosystem around deregulation, the tech partners unveiling new hardware, new worlds being created, flurry of market activity. Then what happens? I think that'll take us well into winter. Winter is coming. I'm still pumped and excited, but we will have to do it again, likely after the end of September. I'm traveling to New Orleans. I will be there for about a week or so. I will check the vibes as we enter spooky season and see what kind of voodoo spells are happening down in the bayou.
Hey, they love Halloween in the bayou. A lot of old graveyards, a lot of coffins and cadavers rising up because of floodwaters rising. You're going to get the whole picture, but you're dead right. No pun intended. And it's also a Friday Halloween this year. We haven't had a Friday Halloween in 5, 6, 7 years. It's one that everyone's talking about because it creates one of the latest Thanksgivings possible, which creates the most government actual open days possible. So if we're looking at the October-November swing as we head into the holidays, I think you're right. I think we're going to see a lot of big changes, a lot of tweaks, a lot of things happening that this heady summer into the fall has been like supporting. And I think there might be some wheels that come off the cart as we really roll towards spooky days.
We'll do it again and see you in October.
Talk to you next month.
Peace.
That's all the time we have for this episode of Off the Record, On the Rocks. You don't have to go home, but you can't stay here. See you next time for more news and all things crypto and Web3.